will spend Christmas 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. The mother of a 9-year-old boy killed in an attack on a Christmas market in Germany has paid tribute to him, saying he will always live on in her heart. Andre Gleisner was the youngest of 5 people who died in Magdeburg on Friday night when a driver plowed into crowds. The suspect, 50-year-old Saudi doctor Taleb A, whose surname is being withheld due to German laws, has been called an Islamophobe by Germany's interior minister. Well, the German authorities are facing questions about how the tragedy was allowed to happen and what was known about the alleged attacker. Let's look in more detail at what we know so far. A black BMW was driven into the area near the Christmas market in Magdeburg on the main road, Ernst Reuter Allee, at 7:02 p.m. The vehicle entered the market through a gap in the bollards designed as an entry point for the emergency services. Once the car had turned right into the main part of the market, it accelerated through the crowds, killing 5 people and injuring more than 200 others. The vehicle then swerved right before the town hall and exited the market before rejoining the main road. There, the car was stopped, and police arrested a suspect at 7:05 p.m., 3 minutes after the attack started. Our Europe correspondent Siobhan Robbins reports now from Magdeburg.
After the carnage, questions. Was something missed? The man arrested over the Christmas market killings has been described as Islamophobic and a fan of the far-right AfD party. But it's now also been revealed he'd been flagged to authorities in the past.
The suspect threatened to do something that would attract international attention. He referred in this context to the attack in Boston. As you may recall, that was a very serious attack at the Boston Marathon in 2013. Subsequently, a warrant was issued to search the flat of the suspect. No evidence of any kind was found that would indicate actual preparations to commit such an act.
It's reported Saudi authorities also issued warnings about the 50-year-old Saudi doctor named Taleb A by German media. While the German government's launched an investigation, the suspect's been held on suspicion of 5 counts of murder and multiple attempted murders. Among the dead, 9-year-old Andre Gleisner. "Let my little teddy bear fly. We will miss you," his mum said, paying tribute. The boy who'd been excited to go to the Christmas market, among those now being mourned by his city, as they hold their loved ones even tighter.
Right now, I'm very close with my family. We are spending so much time at home.
Are you worried that politicians could try and use this to stir up fighting and hatred?
Yes, I'm very worried right now, and I hope for the best.
But grief isn't the only emotion here. The suspect's migrant background has angered the far right. On Saturday, around 2,000 gathered calling for deportations. Syrian-born Beitul now feels becoming a target of rising tensions.
We are frightened. As immigrants, we are witnessing an extreme wave of hate speech against immigrants. We are witnessing even violent acts against immigrants. For example, like me personally, when I was coming here in using the tram, there was a German woman, and there was a guy who's obviously not German, or let's say a person of color. She was actually staring at him to the point where she spit on him.
And with an election around the corner, the danger is this disaster will be used for political point scoring.
People here are exhausted and grief-stricken. They just want answers as to why this happened. The problem is, this attacker doesn't seem to fit any traditional mould. And the grief now causes a vacuum, which is at risk of being filled by disinformation.
For now, Magdeburg is united as it mourns. as questions grow over whether all this misery could have been prevented. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Magdeburg.
To the Middle East now, and at least 22 people are reported to have been killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, Israel has carried out what it says are counter-terrorism raids. Sky News has spoken with the family of a grandmother who says their grandmother was shot and killed by the Israel Defense Forces. The family says they're being targeted and have promised to fight back. From the city of Nablus, Sky's Yusra El-Bagir has this report.
It doesn't take long to find the funeral of a much-loved matriarch in a tight-knit neighborhood. 8-year-old Halima was killed in an IDF raid, and her surviving daughters are not new to this grief.
6 shots at an elderly woman? Where is the humanity in the Israelis? Where is the humanity? They killed children in Gaza. How can they have humanity for an old lady?
She says her 21-year-old son was killed last year, and his brother is in prison. Both loyal to growing militancy here in the West Bank that the Israeli military calls terrorism, but her and her brother say is their only option.
There is no choice but resistance, because they have forced our hand. We don't go to them, they come to us. They target us. They come to our homes and kill our children, our fathers, our mothers.
He takes us to where his mother was shot. And on the way, portraits commemorate militants of different armed factions beyond Hamas. Many of them killed off in raids that have increased since October 7th. She came here to buy groceries, he says, and then the Israelis fired at her. From there, he takes his son to Friday prayer, seeking solace in God after a week of hell.
The community's in a constant state of mourning here. And even as they leave the mosque after praying for the dead, they're left to look at the wreckage from the raids that killed their loved ones.
Surveillance footage shared by a Palestinian news site claims to show Israeli forces in the area, firing into an alley and then moving in. The IDF sent us this footage from the operation, which they claim shows armed terrorists in their vicinity. We approached the IDF about 80-year-old Halima's death, and this was their response. The IDF conducted a counter-terrorism activity to apprehend an individual suspected of terror activity in Nablus. IDF soldiers engaged in exchanges of fire with terrorists who opened fire and hurled explosives towards IDF soldiers. The IDF is aware of the reports that during the exchanges of fire with the terrorists, uninvolved civilians present in the area were harmed. Hours later, in the light of day, the streets are marked by the scars of confrontation. Militants here in hiding after 2 days of back-to-back raids. And civilians, far from the Hamas stronghold in Gaza, are showing support for their neighborhood fighters. This man tells us he's lost loved ones to raids and imprisonment. He says armed young men offer little defense against IDF military machinery. What can an M16 do to a tank? As diplomats scramble to negotiate peace in Gaza, tension continues to build in the West Bank. The polarized politics of Israel and Palestine. 2 fingers in a peace sign, and 1 on the trigger. Yusra El-Bagir, Sky News in the West Bank.
The actor and director Justin Baldoni has rejected claims of sexual harassment made by his co-star Blake Lively. Mr. Baldoni's lawyer says the allegations about his behavior during the making of the movie It Ends With Us are completely false, outrageous and intentionally salacious. Sky's Matthew Thompson reports.
We gather storms, never knowing what they'll mean.
It's been one of the most talked about films of the year, but not for the reasons its makers would have hoped. It Ends With Us was released in the summer, amidst swirling rumours of a falling out between Blake Lively and her co-star and the film's director, Justin Baldoni. Now, bombshell legal documents have brought the dispute into the open, as Lively is suing Baldoni for sexual harassment and accusing him of orchestrating a smear campaign against her. Allegations he firmly denies. The complaint claims in graphic detail that Baldoni engaged in unprofessional and sexually inappropriate behaviour during filming and inserted improvised gratuitous sexual content into scenes between the pair. It culminated in a crisis meeting on set in January, at which Lively's husband, Hollywood star Ryan Reynolds, was present. The complaint further alleges that Baldoni hired a crisis management team to damage her reputation. Text messages between members of this team, Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel, show them discussing destroying Blake Lively, seemingly aware they shouldn't even be talking about it. In another text, Nathan writes, "You know, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. I will. I'll be very tough." In yet another exchange, Abel says, "I'm having reckless thoughts of wanting to plant pieces this week of how horrible Blake is to work with." In August, on the day of the film's world premiere, Nathan and Abel were discussing price plans for services that seemed to include manipulating the social media narrative and seeding stories.
Of course, particularly in America, there are some very aggressive companies, part legal, part PR, that are deployed at this time to generate as much fraction as possible, because, you know, either you are going to destroy someone or actually get a really handsome payoff.
In a statement, a lawyer for Baldoni in the studio Wayfarer said, "These claims are completely false, outrageous and intentionally salacious, with an intent to publicly hurt and rehash a narrative in the media, and that their PR team did nothing proactive nor retaliated against Blake Lively." It's a plot twist that the film's writers could never have imagined, one that could soon turn into a high-stakes court drama. Matthew Thompson, Sky News.
A former British ambassador to the United States has told Sky News that he believes Donald Trump's second term as US president will be like a 24/7 barroom brawl. Speaking on Sunday morning with Trevor Phillips, Lord Darrach issued some advice to the British government's next man in Washington, Lord Mandelson. Let's get more now from our political correspondent, Darren McCaffrey, who joins me from Westminster. So Lord Darrach has a lot of experience working with the Trump administration. What advice is he offering?
Yeah, he does definitely have lots of experience. He was the ambassador, of course, between 2016 and 2019 during Trump's rather turbulent first term. And I think the advice is to expect the unpredictable, if you like, that it's not going to be easy, that trying to get an in with the Trump presidency, particularly in the second term for Britain, is going to be a difficult task, but that in the end, maybe that Lord Mandelson is a good man for the job. That certainly is what Lord Darrach seemed to be suggesting. But yes, unpredictable, maybe chaotic at times. He certainly made a rather colourful, lively comparison. But as I say, he did seem to suggest that Peter Mandelson, who's been through the rough and tumble of politics here in the UK, would be a good man for the job. Let's have a listen in to what Lord Darrach had to say on Trevor Phillips' programme on Sky earlier today.
This is what life is going to be like under Trump 2.0. It's like a 24/7 barroom brawl. You get this sort of stuff going on all the time. You need to have a thick skin, and you need to, to manage it and to get through it, to weather it, as it were. So Lord Mandelson's a very experienced politician. I'm sure he can cope with this kind of stuff.
And it's not just been Lord Darrach who's been offering his help today. Nigel Farage has as well, suggesting that he's prepared to act as a bridge between what he calls his two friends, Peter Mandelson and Donald Trump, saying that the special relationship is more important than anything else. By the way, on that note, Lord Mandelson in the past couple of weeks has suggested he is open to that, saying that he wants to get the best possible relationship for the UK, and if that means talking and dealing with people like Nigel Farage, he is very happy to swallow his pride on that point. But this is all very complicated for the British government to some degree. There are lots of different characters involved in all of this, not least of all people like Elon Musk, who, it has been suggested, may well donate a lot of money to Reform UK and to Nigel Farage, which could damage Labour here at home. But do the Labour government, by potentially blocking that, risk them putting the special relationship at risk itself, given his friendship with Donald Trump? So it is complicated. Lucy Powell, the cabinet minister, who was also on Sky today, suggesting the government haven't made up their mind about whether to block Elon Musk from donating money. And so I think the Labour Party, Labour government, for the time being, are trying to play both sides, if you like, as they try and work things out ahead of Trump getting into the White House in a couple of weeks' time.
Darren McCaffrey in Westminster for us. Darren, thank you. Well, at its first major rally since winning the election, Donald Trump has suggested his administration could try to regain control of the Panama Canal, claiming the U.S. had foolishly ceded the passage to its Central American ally. Well, Panama's president has responded tonight, saying every square meter of the canal belongs to Panama.
The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama, I say very foolishly, by the United States. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop. It's going to stop. The United States has a big and vested interest in the secure, efficient, and reliable operation of the Panama Canal.
A plane has crashed into properties in a Brazilian town, killing all 10 people on board and injuring more than a dozen people on the ground. Brazil's Civil Defense Agency says the aircraft hit the chimney of a home before crashing into a shop in a residential neighborhood of Gramado in the south of the country. Belfast City Airport's runway was closed tonight after an Emerald Airlines plane experienced a hard landing in bad weather and the aircraft's nose wheel collapsed. There were no passengers on board the plane, which was a positioning flight for airline crew. And up to 100 flights were cancelled at Heathrow Airport today because of strong winds. Disruption to the Christmas getaway has continued this weekend due to the bad weather, with a number of ferry services also cancelled and restrictions imposed on some rail services. Well, final rehearsals are underway for one of the most famous carol services in the world. The Festival of Nine Lessons and Carols at King's College Chapel in Cambridge is an annual tradition broadcast globally on Christmas Eve. Composer Bill Ives has penned a new carol for this year's service and sat down with Martin Brunt to talk about the honour.
It's the most famous carol service in the world. With a global radio audience of 160 million, it's a Christmas Eve festival of Bible readings and traditional carols, except for one. Composer Bill Ives was asked to write a new carol for this year's service. The shepherds gaze into their fire. The carol was commissioned by King's College Director of Music, Dan Hyde.
It's a dream commission for any choral composer. Rather scarily, he said, you know, you choose what you want to do, and then I'll build the service around, rest of the choices, music choices around it.
What would have happened if Dan didn't like what you'd written?
It's always a danger. I don't quite know how you get over that. You just have to, I think it's anybody, you know, somebody commissions a portrait, you've just got to put up with what they come up with, haven't you, really? So,
what was his reaction?
Well, he was very pleased.
Bill began by choosing a text, a poem written by a former King's College choir singer, Peter Cairns, entitled 3 Points of Light.
The 3 points of light are the star, the fire, the shepherd's fire, and the glow, the warmth of light from the stable.
For many years, Bill was Director of Music at Magdalen College, Oxford, but he hasn't spent all his career in the rarefied world of classical music. He was one of the famous King singers, and he's performed twice with rock star Paul McCartney.
When I was in the King Singers, we were part of the frog song. We were the frogs in the frog song.
Later, McCartney wrote an oratorio for Bill's Oxford choir.
So you were reunited?
He got on the piano and started playing the frog song straight away. He said, "I remember that, the frog song."
Bill's Carol will get its premiere on Christmas Eve and be broadcast around the world.
King's College, Cambridge is synonymous with Christmas, and that beautiful chocolate box image of the chapel. It's quite scary, actually, because you're faced with the prospect of having to come up with something which is hopefully worthy of the occasion.
Martin Brunt, Sky News, Cambridge.
Let's get the latest sport now from Sky Sports News and Rahul.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
I remember when I first went on trial at under 9, I just couldn't concentrate. There'd be like games going on and I'd be looking over there. I just went off and played club football for a while, went back at under 11s, under 12s, and yeah, I had a lot of ups and downs. There was times where I was 16, you know, when you want to go out and stuff like that, and that's when you truly have to make sacrifices that I found it really difficult. Once I got my feet on the ground and worked hard, then yeah, the journey through the youth team was much easier.
You spent time on loan at Weston-super-Mare. Did the progression from there always seem straightforward?
I always take things, you know, day by day and not look too far ahead. So I was just focusing on progressing and just trying to cement myself in the first team because I didn't see myself as a first team player then. Yeah, I was just trying to focus on playing, you know, a lot of games and improving and then see where that took me.
And then the moves came, of course, Brentford first and then Aston Villa.
I can remember Brentford, they wanted me the season before, but they said I'd be going into the B team and I didn't want to do that, so I played another full season, got another 30, 40 games under my belt, and then went to Brentford and I felt like I was in a much better position. It worked out really well. I think just appreciating the little things is what's helped me. If you can score goals, and you can score goals in any league, and then I think, you know, just keep working hard and just believing in yourself, because if you have that belief, then that's the most important thing. And football changes so quickly, so you need that little bit of luck, but if you work hard, then there's no way that you can't succeed, and you may get that little break that can, you know, get you a move, and it goes on from there.
Loan moves down the pyramid can be crucial for the development of academy players. Look at Harry Kane and his journey to becoming England's record goalscorer. And so many of the top players follow the same path.
Them loan moves weren't to get you out the building for no reason, to get you away from the place. They were to become a Premier League goalkeeper. If you can get out on loan and play the men's game, you know, you'll learn a lot more about yourself, the toughness of it, that winning mentality as well. I learned so much from my first move to Dalton to my last loan move at Preston.
The loans have been phenomenal, from obviously non-league all the way through the leagues, League Two, League One, Championship, and then into the Premier League. So I've sort of played every level of football, and it's all different. The pyramid's different, the league's different.
I felt like I needed to play. I needed first team exposure. I know I was young, I was only 18, but I definitely needed it. I think when you're young, it doesn't matter, I suppose, what level you play at or what team as such, as long as you're getting games and minutes in and they help you kick on and go to the next level, and that's what I did. And not everything went perfect, but that's the whole part of it. That's the whole point.
It's always difficult, probably as a young goalkeeper, the expectation on you coming from Man United. Even though you're young, people just think you can come into the team and you're Superman, but that's not the case. In my Scunthorpe loan, I tasted a bit of everything. I was playing, I made mistakes, got injured, was on the bench. Preston, we ended up at Wembley. Villa, lost the playoff final. It just all add up.
You learn the game management side of it, that winning factor, seeing games out, chasing games. You learn a lot about yourself. Them learning keys are massive. I think it's the best pathway, no matter where you start. If you go Conference North, just getting the games under the belt and just raising your profile for that opportunity, I would definitely get away from your main club and go and get the experience in low levels.
This is the real deal. Like, you step out your comfort zone, you've never experienced it before, but you have to take that in your stride. That's why you play football, that's the pressure that comes with it, and that allowed me to be the person I am now.
You have to mature, you have to grow up. There's points on the line, there's money on the line to get wins, and it is a completely different world, to be honest, to what I was used to at Man United.
I was really successful at Shrewsbury and Sheffield United. Also, I'm very conscious at Stockport, my first loan, when I had a nightmare and I was terrible. That was a massive learning curve for me. If you back yourself and you know you're going to get there, go out and prove it, and then you'll come back to the Premier League club.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the journalist and author Rachel Shabi and the journalist and broadcaster Daisy McAndrew. Welcome both. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Express. Their headline, Labour set to drive UK headlong into recession. We'll be right back.
Prime Minister Modi is the most popular politician in the country. He is expected to win his third term in these elections.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party, a promise fulfilled. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
He paid over 50,000 to traffickers to get him to America. Instead, he was kidnapped, tied up, and threatened by smugglers. A commando from the state force walks me through to a Maitai village on the front line.
Firing to civilians and they're burning our house.
We cross to the opposite side, held by the cookies.
When they fire, we have to retaliate.
Sky News, get the full story first. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration.
The enthusiasm is palpable. The young desire change.
These elections are a pivotal moment for the country's economic and political history. The concern here is that the public healthcare system is inadequate.
In a prayer, she's asking God to help understand what happened. I cannot carry on. God, help me. He says his world has crashed. Like him, there are scores of families searching for their loved ones.
Too often have families endured such tragedies for the negligence not only by the administration, but also by spiritual people in this country. Free wherever you get your news. Even though it has few seats in Parliament, Kashmir is symbolic and very significant. It's often been called a nuclear flashpoint.
Day of this conflict. They keep telling us that they want aid. And this is what's left of it.
Heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
They want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty? I want you to be honest with people. That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. The mother of a 9-year-old boy killed in an attack on a Christmas market in Germany has paid tribute to him, saying he will always live on in her heart. The actor and director Justin Baldoni has rejected claims of sexual harassment made by his co-star Blake Lively. And Belfast City Airport's runway has been closed after a plane's nose wheel collapsed as it landed in adverse weather conditions. Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the journalist and author Rachel Shabby and the journalist and broadcaster Daisy McAndrew. Thank you both for being here. Let's see what's on some of those front pages now. Well, the Financial Times quotes Reform UK's Treasurer Nick Candy as promising political disruption like we've never seen before. It comes after he and Reform's leader Nigel Farage met Elon Musk last week. Amid suggestions, the billionaire could soon make a multi-million-pound donation to the party. The Express leads with a warning from business leaders who, it says, believe Labour is driving the nation into a recession by creating a hostile climate for aspiration, investment and growth. There's more bad news for the Chancellor on the front of the Mail as businesses warn that the economy is heading for the worst of all worlds. The Eye hears the Prime Minister may face a rebellion from his own MPs in the new year over his refusal to compensate the so-called WASPy women for their lost pension funds. The Guardian, meanwhile, leads on an exclusive, revealing that local authorities spent £100 million in failed efforts to block support for children with special educational needs. The Mirror lead with a Christmas appeal as a toddler is in need of a double organ transplant to give him the gift of life. The Sun has the latest now from Tyson Fury as the defeated boxer vowed it's not over and contemplates a bout with Anthony Joshua. And the Star bemoans what it says are people's low personal hygiene standards over the festive period. We'll find out soon enough. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Rachel Shabby and Daisy McAndrew. Thank you both so much for going through the papers with us. It is sort of the weekend before Christmas, but there's this horrific story from Germany still dominating the headlines. So let's start with that. In a lot of the papers, but let's start with The Guardian. On the front page, they're saying that Magdeburg's suspect was known to police. And that's one of the questions, you know, whether this attack in some way or another could have been prevented. Daisy.
Well, exactly right, because, of course, this attack has two elements to it. It has the horrendous personal element of the injured and the dead, and then the wider political impact of this attack. And all the questions being asked now, was the suspect known to the authorities? And we've now heard the Federal Police Services confirmed that they were warned about this individual, that he was somebody they should be aware of, they should be watching. And, of course, as a result, we're going to see a lot of Germans and possibly other Europeans intensely criticising the German government and the German authorities. And then we've got to think about what are the ramifications of that. We've already seen some protests, we've already seen some anti-immigrant sentiment and so on. So the ripple effect from this horrible attack could be really, really significant. And German politics is a mess already.
Yeah, well, they have elections coming up, I think, February 23rd. Yep. And it's been interesting, beyond Germany, a lot of far-right leaders, I think it was Geert Wilders, Marine Le Pen, Nigel Farage, Elon Musk, I mean, they're all kind of waded in, attacking, I guess what they say, you know, are many of the reasons leading to this. Rachel.
It's a weird one for the far-right, though, isn't it? Because the alleged perpetrator is himself someone who is more drawn to far-right ideas, particularly around hostility to immigration and to refugees, and very critical of Germany for, obviously, several years ago being very welcoming to refugees, predominantly from Syria, which, as we can see now, you can see why so many people were fleeing that country. And it's weird as well, the far-right rally that was organised was really a result of exactly that misinformation, of it being pumped into the air supply somehow that this person, you know, is a symbol of all the things they hate, as opposed to someone who's very much on the same page.
There's so much we still don't know. But certainly the Interior Minister has said that the suspect was an Islamophobe. And I think the prosecutor said the motive appeared to be the treatment of Saudi refugees in Germany. But, you know, there's a lot piece is missing. It's a strange one.
But it's certainly clear that he's not somebody in favour of immigration. He's somebody opposed to immigration. So for the far right to be claiming him as one of their own is straightforward misinformation. But we can agree on that, right?
And we've seen here with Southport how these things can blow up.
Exactly the same thing.
And build a life of their own. And obviously there's a lot more that will come out about this individual as, as more information comes out. And he does seem to most people to be a dichotomy. To be, from an area where, a lot of people will immediately say, this is an immigrant, this therefore is, an anti-German attack, and we must defend Germany. And obviously we've had chants, Germany for Germans, and so on. And yet it seems to be that he was also anti-immigration. So, a lot more will come out.
I think what it's showing us, isn't it, is that if you are far right, that's an ideology, and it actually doesn't have much to do with skin colour, does it?
No, no, it doesn't. But a lot of people will assume
think
that it does.
yes.
Yep.
Let's move on to another aspect of this horrific one. The Daily Express, I think it's pages 6 and 7, has more on little Andre Glasner, who's the 9-year-old boy that was killed in the attack. 4 other women killed as well between the ages of 45 and 75. But, this, all the deaths are horrific, but there's a lot more about this child and a lot of heartbreaking testimony from the family and friends of the family.
And of course, losing a child at any time of year is, is going to be absolutely horrendous for anybody. But there's something about it happening at Christmas when we are all thinking about being with our own family. And it's also the fact that this child has died, but there are 200 people injured, and, a huge number, a significant proportion of those are critical. So I think we are expecting the death toll to go up. And because it was a Christmas market, unusual number of children, of course, at Christmas markets, and all of that. As I said, a death, is a death, but there is something that's making it very poignant and particularly upsetting.
Because it was 7 p.m, so a lot of families with young children would still have been there, and he himself had wanted to go to the Christmas market.
Yeah, I mean, it really is devastating, because it is that time when people are with families, and Christmas markets are such family events. I mean, if you've had the chance to go to one across Europe, they're just delightful, and very much filled with families enjoying themselves and relaxing a little bit. And to have this just so horrifyingly disrupted by this act of terror, and it's just a huge amount of people injured, as you say, and obviously the results might be more serious in the days to come.
Yeah, I think that's what we're expecting.
I think there was one line about Andre Glasner from a friend of the family saying, of course, he's not going to be able to unwrap the presents that will be left under the tree. So, very tragic story. Let's move on to some domestic news. The economy. Let's start with the eye. Pension protest. PM faces biggest rebellion yet in New Year vote. And this is about the women's state pension issue, the WASPy women. It kind of adds to the troubles that the Prime Minister is having. There's lots more, but let's start with this, Daisy.
I mean, this is very interesting, because I think a lot of people within Downing Street and within the Labour Party thought, we've got all these new MPs, they'll do what they're told. And the worm is already beginning to turn with a lot of these new MPs who don't seem to be as obedient as many thought they would be. And I think one of the problems is a lot of these new politicians are seeing that their core vote, and particularly those who actually go out and vote, the elderly, are pretty disgusted with a lot of the things that the Labour Party has done, whether it was winter fuel or whether it was WASPy women. And there's also the issue whereby the Labour Party is more popular than their leader, and that's never a comfortable position for a new leader. It's quite common if a leader's been around a bit, beginning to look a bit stale and a bit tired. It's very common for the party to be more popular than the leader, but to have a leader who has just won a stonking great majority, actually to have very, very poor popularity, that also means that a lot of these MPs aren't going to be as loyal to him as they would if he was riding higher in the polls. So I think the WASPy women is going to sting him.
I mean, it's interesting. This is all about cuts and trying to stimulate growth, because, that they say they were left with a financial black hole. But if you look at the front pages of both the Daily Express and the Daily Mail, let's start with the Daily Express. Labour set to drive UK headlong into recession. The Mail has a similar headline. Economy is heading for the worst of all worlds. And these are figures or statements coming from the Confederation of British Industry, effectively saying that we're heading for difficult times.
Well, I think it's possible for two things to be true at exactly the same moment. And the first thing is that, right-wing press attacks Labour government on economy, shock, horror. I mean, that's just going to happen. Historically, it's always happened when there's been a Labour government. However, at the same time, it may also be true. And I think that Labour is a victim of its own boxing itself in to economic policy and fiscal policy and the stupid fiscal rule, which is a made-up Tory policy, that they didn't need to. They actually did not need to hem themselves in like that. And as a result, they are putting the burden on the most vulnerable in society, pensioners, winter fuel payments, child benefit cap. These are the most vulnerable in the society. I'm sure these new Labour MPs didn't get into Labour politics to take money away from the most vulnerable in our society. And they actually didn't need to do that. They could tear up that fiscal rule. They could say, actually, we're not going to do national insurance contributions because that sucks as a means of income.
But if they'd torn it up, then they would go back on everything they said in the campaign in order to get the election campaign, in order to get elected, by promising that they were going to stick to fiscal rules and promising they were going to be responsible.
Well, they've already broken their promises, so they might as well break their promises in a way that is better economically for more people.
And I do agree with you, shock, horror, the Express and the Mail criticising this, and the CBI criticising, the CBI obviously representing businesses who are very upset about what happened in the budget and very upset about the fact that employing people is going to be more expensive and so on. And I take the point, Richard Soames, who's the chairman of the CBI, he's Nicholas Soames' brother. You would expect him to be, of the right, and he's a big business leader. But the Labour Party does have a problem with business. They schmoozed and dined and wined and dined business so much in the run-up in order to get business, to reassure business that they were a safe pair of hands and that they could take over from the Conservative Party. And they have got a problem at the moment. I think they fully expected to irritate the hell out of business in the first few months because they knew they were going to announce the black hole, the mythical black hole, by the way. I mean, the black hole wasn't mythical, but the Conservatives and Labour both knew perfectly well that black hole was there. It's just that it didn't serve either of their purposes to tell the rest of us that black hole was there for electoral reasons. So, yes, no great surprise, and it is a relatively quiet news day tomorrow. So the Express and the Mail will have been looking around saying, we'll go with a CBI report, which under normal
circumstances... Pretty sure they ran that last week.
Under normal circumstances wouldn't have had a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
But there is a problem with business and the Labour Party, and they are, by the time of the next election, they're going to have to fix it.
But that what you just said, Labour has a problem with business, is a right-wing paradigm. That's 3 decades of newspapers saying that. It's not actually a thing. Right.
Well, it is because business was not expecting the tax hikes that came in the budget.
Correct.
And that came as a very, very nasty shock. And they did believe the hype. I mean, the Labour Party conference was extraordinary this year with the huge numbers of, big business beasts who were there fawning over Rachel Reeves and desperate to talk to her because they had drunk the Kool-Aid and thought she was going to do what she says. Of course, she now says she has no choice because of the black hole and so on. And I have some sympathy with that in that she did have to, if she was going to stick to the fiscal rules, she did have to find the money from somewhere. But you can't do another 3.5 years constantly annoying these businesses that have been supporting you.
The businesses were annoyed over national insurance contributions, which she reneged on. I'm saying that was a dud move to begin with. But businesses were quite into John McDonnell's economic policies back in his day. They absolutely were. The Financial Times ran these glowing report cards on John McDonnell's financial policies and how business-friendly he was, saying that there's 3 decades of Labour not being good with business and business not trusting Labour is a manufactured paradigm that's not actually a thing.
Yes, I would agree. I think business was very keen on a lot of Gordon Brown and Tony Blair's
broadband,
policies.
infrastructure, roads.
We're just going to have to move on from there, but we will be talking about business and politics again because coming up, having met Elon Musk last week, Reform UK's Treasurer promises political disruption like we have never seen before. We'll discuss that next.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest and 'Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island.
The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe. Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out.
The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here. In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
They want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me now in the studio, Rachel Shabby and Daisy McAndrew. Let's go straight to the Financial Times. We're talking about business a little bit earlier. Links here. Candy vows, Nick Candy, to help reform disrupt UK politics like we have never seen before. So, Rachel, tell me about what's in this article, but also, about all the suggestions that Elon Musk could be giving reform quite a lot of money.
Right. So the new treasurer of Nigel Farage's party Reform says, we've got loads more billionaires. We're going to be making bank from all these billionaire backers in addition to Elon Musk. Doesn't actually say who these billionaires are. Also, we're going to have to park for a moment that, the party of the ordinary people is quite happy to be billionaire financed because that's the model for Trump, and that seems to work just fine. But the whole idea of billionaire funding of parties, particularly if you're not a UK citizen, is something that the Electoral Commission is in discussion with the government about. And this all came to the fore over Elon Musk, who, of course, is not a British citizen, who has said that he wants to fund the Reform Party. There's a loophole in the UK where you can do it if you have through profits from a company domiciled in the UK, but that loophole, I would suggest, needs to be closed. The Commission has recommended something like that, and the government is now looking at it.
I think it is a sign that reform certainly is here to stay for a lot longer than people thought. People thought once Brexit was done, and now, of course, we realise that at the last election they did incredibly well. But the quote here saying the oldest political party in the world Conservative Party, will be overtaken by the youngest political party on the planet. And obviously, that is a quote from Nick Candy. But I think a lot of people do believe that that's a possibility. A few years ago, nobody would have thought that was a possibility. So I think it is fascinating how those sort of tectonic political plates have changed, and this is a sort of new reality that we've all got to get used to.
And what do you think the government should do, if anything, about money coming from foreigners?
I mean, one of the main things that all the parties would say is it needs to be a level playing field. Other people would say, well, why? Why should a small, unpopular party, whichever party that is, be able to, say, cap the amount of donations that a bigger, more popular party, might be able to get? Other people would say because of, undue influence from foreigners and so on. So it's a difficult one. If the Labour Party looks like it's doing it to damage its opponent, that's a bad look.
I actually think you should cap all billionaire funding of politics. I think it has a distorting effect on politics, and we can see that to its extreme in the US.
Yeah. Speaking of the US, let's go to the Mail and the story about Hollywood's ugliest feud. Inside story of Blake Lively's bombshell sexual harassment claims about her co-star. Ironically, it happened on the film set of a film that is about an abusive relationship.
It is. The film is called It Ends With. I've come late to this story via my niece, who literally, as I was leaving home today, was explaining to me, very excitedly about all the ins and outs. And the story is fascinating. I think it is going to become, a really, really big story. There are two elements to it. In the filming of this movie, Blake Lively was very upset by some things that the producer, James Heath, and her co-star, Justin Baldoni, allegedly did. And the list of accusations is really horrible. It's everything from sort of kind of gutter talk to some really, to accusing him of sort of biting her lip and being overly sexual in sex scenes that what she wasn't prepared for, wasn't in the script, to, all sorts of, sort of sexually harassing talk and behaviour and so on. Anyway, many people noticed in the last few months that there were all these stories coming out trashing Blake Lively. She's a diva, she's difficult, she's impossible, typical Hollywood. And it looks like, so she's now suing them for destroying her reputation and also for their behaviour. And it looks from the disclosure of this court case that's just starting that there are these transcripts of emails from a crisis communications expert called Melissa Nathan, sort of seemingly allegedly saying we can trash her before these accusations she's making about us get out there will besmirch her.
And Rachel, just before coming to you, worth pointing out that, of course, they both deny all allegations of wrongdoing.
And Justin Baldoni's just lost his agent.
OK.
Today.
Rachel?
I find it extraordinary, this whole reputation damage that essentially a PR company can allegedly do.
Yeah.
Just decide to do it.
She's a big star, Blake Lively.
Right.
You'd think she should be and Hollywood royalty as well because of her husband.
Yeah, like a total Hollywood power couple, and yet reputation damage can be unleashed. Allegedly.
Well, it's good for a completely different story, and end on that, the Daily Star. So there it is. The headline, Jingle Smells, basically bad festive hygiene. Now, I can't believe some of the details here. Daisy.
So this poll that the Daily Star, first of all, they always do great front pages, but Jingle Smells, millions won't shower between Christmas and New Year. They're saying this poll has revealed, and I thought, this is going to be, millions of people around the world. And apparently, I was trying to look at apparently it's not. Apparently, it's millions of Brits won't shower between Christmas.
What about the New Year's Eve parties?
And won't change their underwear either. And then they've got this cat and dog with the clothes pegs on their nose. But I would love to, and they're calling it a festive pongdemic warning. But yes, I did try to do some due diligence on this and find out what this poll was, but I've failed so far. But I would love to know if any viewers would admit to that.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing, it's that goblin mode, isn't it, where you just go a bit feral for a few days, but you do that when you're on your own.
Or if
when you're
camping,
surrounded by family, right? Well, I never go camping.
Rachel, Daisy, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both so much. And coming up next on Sky News at 11, tributes are paid to the youngest victim of Germany's Christmas market attack, 9-year-old Andre Gleisner.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
This is Sky News at 11 o'clock. The headlines this evening. The mother of a child killed in Germany's Christmas market attack says he will always live on in her heart. German authorities face questions over how the attack was allowed to happen and what was known about the suspect. Also ahead, we speak to a family in the West Bank who say they're fighting back after an 80-year-old grandmother is shot dead. The actor and